Woo! Feels good. The music can keep rolling. The vibes are high now, fellas. First one of the season. We finally got one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Robbie Haytayan. Right with me are my three lovely co-hosts, Justin Lowe, Seamus Zarlingo, and Griffin Aldrich. Guys, the Boston Celtics, they pick up their first win of the 2025-2026 NBA season on the road of a second night of a back-to-back against the New Orleans Pelicans. Obviously, the Pelicans without Zion Williamson tonight. However, Boston took advantage of that in all facets. 122-90 was your final score of tonight's game behind a Boston Celtics avalanche, 35-12 in that fourth quarter. New Orleans only making 3 field goals in that fourth. We'll talk more about that fourth quarter later on. The Boston Celtics, obviously a commanding win, guys. It's the first one of the season. Obviously, we're on here last night. The vibes are a little bit low. Tonight, hopefully, they're going to be a little bit higher because the Celtics finally, like I said, they pick up that win. You guys know the drill here. Our initial thoughts, reactions, takeaways from the first win of the 25-26 campaign.
Well, boys, I said it last night. It could just take one win with this team. It could just take one win. This is a really good win for the Celtics. Now, some might say, oh, it's the Pelicans, but I think this is totally different than years past, right? Like, let's face it, the Celtics coming into this game 0-3, all 3 winnable games, but still 0-3. Obviously, Jason Tatum being out this year, kind of vibes are already low a little bit, right, guys? We get a lot of new guys trying to get acclimated into the lineup and kind of just try to find their ways. And I kind of had a feeling that if the Celtics could get a win, they could get something going. Could this be the start of something? Probably not. We run into Cleveland on Wednesday, but we'll see about that. But in terms of living in the moment and focusing on the moment and controlling the now, the Celtics controlled the now tonight, and they did a phenomenal job. And you know why the Celtics won this game, fellas? It's because they had a 54-35 rebound advantage. That was the final rebound advantage tonight. They had 28 of those rebounds in the first half. The Celtics controlled the boards from the tip. We'll get into the lead tracker, but the lead only grew tonight for the Celtics. And anytime New Orleans got into this game, the Celtics are really able to control it and push this out. And we're going to get more in depth at what happened in that fourth quarter, but the Celtics were on the other end of that tonight. The Celtics have given up these quarters, just one quarter, almost every game. It feels like the Celtics have given up a 35-12 quarter, a 42-18 quarter, right? The Celtics on the other end of that, 35-12 tonight in the fourth quarter. Only 3 made field goals for the New Orleans Pelicans. So the Celtics defense was going to work in that fourth quarter. A lot of 3-point shots falling for the Celtics in that fourth quarter, able to pull away. Guys, it was a 5-point Celtic lead with 9:15 remaining in this game. It was a 5-point game, and Jaylen Brown left this game early with 5 fouls and foul trouble, right? So Jaylen Brown goes to the bench. New Orleans cuts a 14-point lead down to 5, and you're kind of sitting here thinking, oh boy, 0-4 on its way. This is kind of really looking like what it's looked like these first 3 games where the Celtics build the lead, and then that home team comes back in that fourth quarter and takes control like the Celtics never had that lead. Celtics didn't waver tonight, and it showed with a 32-point win. This is a big win, fellas. First win of the season. Long way to go still. A lot of ups and a lot of downs throughout this game, but the Celtics in that fourth quarter, that was the best quarter we've seen them play all year long so far.
100%. The fourth quarter for the Celtics tonight, it looked like the opposite of what the Celtics have seen this past week. The Celtics are usually the ones giving up that quarter, right? Yet they were the ones actually implying it to the game themselves. And the Pelicans, for a moment there, looked like, oh, the Celtics and the Pelicans, they're on the same level, which they might be still after this game. Just saying. But that fourth quarter certainly separated the Celtics from the Pelicans, and they did it on both ends of the floor, right? And we talked about it we talked about it last night, but it was about the Knicks game, right? The Knicks game, the second quarter of the Knicks game, it was on both ends of the floor where the Celtics faltered. I mean, offensively, they couldn't get anything going, and then defensively, they were giving up layup after layup and open bucket after open bucket. Well, tonight, the Celtics were the ones finding the open bucket, especially in that fourth quarter, and then they were doing it by also on the defensive end of the floor, creating turnovers, running in transition, and just simply preventing buckets from their opponent, right? Preventing buckets. I mean, talk about, oh yeah, we want to turn those turnovers and those stops into points for the Celtics, right? The Celtics want to turn those opportunities into points for themselves. However, it's just about taking opportunities away from the other team as well, right? That's the baseline. I mean, the extra is creating those opportunities for yourself, the points for yourself off of those opportunities. But just the baseline is keeping buckets away from the other team. That's what the Celtics did in the fourth quarter. Then the offense, perfect. Perfect. I mean, the beginning of the fourth quarter, Anthony Simons and Sam Hauser, that's what we need to be seeing more often, especially out of those two guys. Their offense, getting those two guys open buckets, open looks, and them just doing their thing, hitting shots. We know Anthony Simons can hit shots. He has a 7-year NBA resume as a 40% three-point shooter. Sam Hauser, he has a 4-year resume as a 40% three-point shooter. I mean, these are big resumes. These are big sample sizes. And if we just get these guys open shots, that's the conversation we were on this summer, right? About the prolific offense that could potentially come out of this team. First 3 games looked absolutely horrid to the point where we're going, this offense doesn't really click together. It doesn't really matter if there are a bunch of snipers on the offense if they're not getting open looks, they're not getting great looks, they're not getting efficient looks. Well, tonight, especially in that fourth quarter, they were starting to find more of those open looks. And of course, when the guys see those open looks, when they're a 40% three-point shooter, they're going to knock some shots down. And in some moments, especially when the start of the season's been a little cold for the Celtics so far in some of these shooters, I mean, it was only a matter of time before the variance fell the other way for the Celtics. And it really felt like it was in that fourth quarter. Sam Hauser and Anthony Simons specifically, those two guys were just hitting shot after shot after shot. And then Derek White, he was getting involved, going to the rim. Yeah. And it was just that aggressive attack on the offensive end of the floor. It bled to both ends. And the Celtics, this is the type of game we want to see them play. That fourth quarter was really the type of game we want to see them play every single quarter, because we know this team is not going to be able to replicate that they're not going to be able to replicate what the championship team did. I mean, that when we're talking about the championship team 2 years ago, we're talking about, oh, you can do that for all 4 quarters. No, this team's not going to be able to do that for all 4 quarters. But can you do it for 1 quarter? Can you sustain that tiny margin throughout the rest and then put up a quarter like this to actually finish off games? The Celtics are going to win a lot more games that way. They actually are able to suppress the mistakes, in which we saw a lot last night and even on Friday against the Knicks. They suppressed the mistakes tonight, and then they turn those opportunities they gained for themselves by suppressing those mistakes, they turn them into points. And ultimately, it led to this lopsided affair we saw at the end of the night. This score doesn't really feel indicative of this game whatsoever. It feels like we were just in our recliner, just kicking back. The Celtics, they're going to pick up this win, their first win of the season. But really, it was we were clinched, I feel like, until maybe halfway through the fourth quarter there. Halfway through the fourth, we're going, oh, no, this thing's over. It's 21-point lead. This thing's over. But for most of the night, we're going, all right, we've seen this before. Celtics up 7, 8, 9. This is not enough, right? We saw it against the Pistons. We saw it against the 76ers, 2 teams who were supposed to be on the same level as the Celtics. Celtics couldn't maintain leads. Tonight, the Celtics maintained their lead, and not only maintained it, I mean, they built on it to a point where at the end of the night, the score doesn't look anything like how the game actually went about for all 4 quarters.
I mean, you said it right there, Seamus. If they tuned in the second or third quarter, they would be on the edge of their seat, because I was. But ultimately, I think from the Boston Celtics, they played team basketball, and that's what I take most from this. I feel like I was talking on here against the Knicks, saying, they need to figure their stuff out. It takes a while, and I don't think the team chemistry is completely there, but they were playing team basketball. You look at this box score, I mean, there's a significant amount of players in double digits, and it was just a fun team basketball win. And ultimately, what I also take away from this is they were playing together. And it wasn't just a Jaylen Brown night. He had 41 last night. It wasn't any individual player. There were players, Anthony Simons stuck out upon other people, but they all played together and they were all united. But ultimately, what I also take away from this is early in the game, just the intensity from tip-off. Josh Minott throwing down that dunk right off of tip. Yeah. And it was just incredible. The energy was there from the get-go. And I put this down, and I want to hear what you guys think about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when he threw down a couple of those dunks, I think he's going to be a better version, but I see O'Shea Brissett just a little bit, throwing down
I
dunks like
said that during the preseason. I said he's
Yeah.
very similar to O'Shea Brissett.
All right, I'm happy you have the same vibe too, because I was like, I need to put that down there because it's just like the same energy. And, this might be a player where he was very successful starting for the Boston Celtics tonight. That might be the route they go with for a while. I feel like Joe Mazzulla is not done shaking it up yet. He's going to keep throwing different pieces out there to see what works and what doesn't. But this is a guy who's going to give you that extra spark off the bench as well. And I was very impressed with what he did. And I'm just very happy that the Boston Celtics finally played team basketball. And that's what ultimately got them this win, especially in the fourth quarter. They were all playing together. They were all playing, there was a rough patch in the second quarter where DeAndre Jordan just popped off and just destroyed the Celtics for a second. But Joe Mazzulla kind of toned them all in and was like, all right, you guys are out of line. You guys need to lock back in. And that's what they did. And they played team basketball.
He said, you're letting a homeless guy score on you, is what he said. This guy was
a homeless guy with a hefty career earning. You gotta be careful there.
I'm sorry. DeAndre Jordan as a Pelican just looks like, if you were to look up what a washed NBA player looks like, right? Like, what are the most washed photos in NBA history, right? Shaq on the Celtics. Like, you think about that. You think about Hakeem on the Raptors, Patrick Ewing on the Magic.
Well, I think a Pelican's
DeAndre Jordan on the
looks weird on
Pelicans
anybody, though.
I agree. But I have to say, though, in that second quarter, he looked like prime DeAndre Jordan for a second.
He did. He was dunking, rebound. Yeah.
He was. I mean, you got to give a huge shout out to the big men. That's my biggest thing tonight. I think a game in which Boston probably had the upper hand in terms of big men that were out there. We talked about old man Jordan. Jordan. Yeah, that's exactly how it sounded in my head too. That's exactly how I thought about it. But no, it was a game in which Boston, you kind of need to see this out of the big men, and the big men showed it to you. Shout out Luka Garza tonight. I thought he was phenomenal on the offensive end of the floor. Neemias Queta held it down, 4 blocks, 11 rebounds. He did his thing on that side of the ball, that end of the basketball. But yeah, I agree with what you guys had to say. I think from a Celtics standpoint, I'm not going to come on here and my opinion hasn't changed on this team overnight. That's for sure, right? I mean, this still is a team that has a lot to figure out before we can really get a good gauge on where they're at. Tonight was a good stepping stone, though, no doubt about it, Justin. Like how you opened up the show, right? The building. Oh God, we're bringing mind-boggling last night. Building block tonight. We're going down a rabbit hole, fellas. We're going down a rabbit hole.
Season's back. I mean, these are the key terms.
Yeah, that is. It's only game 4, so buckle in. But no, I mean, I agree. My only concern is I don't know how sustainable this type of play is. I do believe that you get a Anthony Simons type of night out of one of the 4 guys, out of White, Pritchard, Brown, and obviously Simons. So I believe that it might be a trend you see this year where it's just one of the 4 that are giving them that scoring boost, and the rest are kind of just, right there, kind of all contributing within that, 9 to 15 point range. That works a lot of the time in the NBA. We see that a good amount. So I do believe, from an offensive game plan, that could be the direction Boston goes. And Griffin, you hit it right on the nail. You nailed it. That's Josh Minott. Josh Minott was clearly in the preseason, guys, clearly the most interesting player that Boston rolled out there. He was by far, hands down, out of all the new guys, was the guy that stood out the most. And it was a bumpy start of the first 3 games in terms of playing time. Tonight, he finally gets the start. And I think he kind of showed, and we're going to talk about this more later in the show, but he showed maybe this should be a guy that Boston leans on in that starting lineup. However, guys, let's take a look at the lead tracker tonight. Because again, this one for the Celtics, it's not a sea of green. It was towards the end. I'll call it like a tsunami of green, because it just all poured in at the end. but it's this. It looks like a difference. You know what, Justin? You're right. You're right. That's a sea of green. We'll stamp it a sea of green.
There's no blue on that. It maybe in the beginning when it was like a 1-point game. Yeah, that was low tide. Yeah. That was like
okay. Are we stamping it the first? This would be the first sea of green of the season. Are we stamping it?
I kind of like the tsunami of green reference though. The biggest lead of the night, 32, and it's at the end of the game. I mean, that's just. I mean, that's a mountain of green.
Well, you know what? This is probably the best lead tracker we've seen in a while, even dating back to last season. That might be a hot take, but like usually we see the Celtics waver and we see the Celtics end quarters really poorly, and we really don't see the lead grow as much. If anything, we see the lead shrink and the other team's lead grow. And tonight that wasn't the case. Look at the lead tracker. You saw a few moments where the Celtics were up and down, but for the most part, the Celtics were very consistent in their leads tonight. And anytime New Orleans really kind of made a little pivot, you could see the lead tracker start to grow a little bit better. And then obviously in that fourth quarter, specifically in that back half of that fourth quarter, the Celtics really took control of this game, which is very important because the first three games, when it came fourth quarter time, all three games have been close, fellas. But when it came fourth quarter time, that lead tracker was a little bit the opposite. It was blue, it was orange, and it was blue again for the Knicks and the Sixers and the Pistons. So credit to the Celtics tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, biggest lead of the night for the Celtics team, 32 points, the very end of the game. Biggest lead for the New Orleans Pelicans, just one. It was almost a wire-to-wire win for the season. Obviously, you see if you squint and get right up close to your screen, you can see the New Orleans Pelicans held the 1-point lead early on in that first quarter. Cute. It was a sea of green from there on out, followed by an absolute tsunami onslaught towards the end of green for the Celtics in that fourth quarter. Guys, now we've teased it a lot now with the Celtics in that fourth quarter, but let's really get to the chunk and let's really break down how Boston was able to maintain a lead throughout the game, and then an onslaught came in that fourth quarter. What did Boston do well throughout the course of the game to maintain it, and then what happened in that fourth quarter to just absolutely run away with it?
I mean, I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. I thought the Celtics controlling the boards was a huge factor tonight. Celtics defense as well. I think it starts there, and then I think as the game went on, I think you start it. You sustain the lead by acquiring defensive rebounds. You're closing out defensive possessions, getting the rebound, and then you kind of let your offense work off of that. I don't think the Celtics defense is a great defense. So when they get stops, those are extremely valuable. And when they're unable to get stops, you have to rely on missed shots. In the Celtics, when they rely on missed shots, that's great and all, but when they don't get the rebound, it kills them. And it gives it gives teams like the Pelicans a second chance to score. And the Celtics were able to control the rebounds tonight. That, I think, helped them maintain the lead. And then to extend the lead, I do think the Celtics were using those stops and creating it offensively, getting out on the fast break. And when the Celtics get out on the fast break, you think cut into the basket. But when you have Anthony Simons on one corner and Sam Hauser in the other corner, those are two great options on the outside perimeter, and those two got going late in that fourth quarter. Sam Hauser, Seamus, you mentioned it earlier, started 0 for 7 in this game, and he ended up knocking down a few three-pointers in that fourth quarter. That was huge. And then, Rob, you mentioned Anthony Simons tonight was incredible shooting tonight. That's what we've known him. Seamus, you just mentioned a 7-year resume of doing that, and tonight he did a phenomenal job at that. Easily his best game as a Celtic, including those preseason games. He looked very comfortable out there, and I think that's exactly what it was tonight for the Celtics. They were getting the defensive rebound. They weren't letting any of those happen. Offensive rebounds happened tonight, and they were shooting the ball very well, particularly in that fourth quarter, able to extend the lead. Also, credit to the Celtics for making those plays down the stretch. You're already down Jason Tatum. You go down Jaylen Brown in a single-digit game. You're kind of sitting there scratching your head. You're starting to get a little anxious, a little nervous. Say, oh, boy, here we go. We got to go without Jaylen Brown. And I talked about it last night. I'm not the biggest fan of Peyton Pritchard and Anthony Simons on the court at the same time. That worked out particularly well. They did lean on Pritchard a little bit towards the end, a little bit surprising there since, Simons had the hot hand going. But that's what it was for the Celtics. They hit shots down the stretch, extending the lead. And to maintain the lead tonight, they controlled the boards.
Yeah, that's such a big aspect in all of this is the Celtics' ability to decrease possessions for another team and add
Right.
those possessions to their own total. Because tonight the Celtics outshot the Pelicans by 11 shots. And I always look at field goal attempts when looking at the box score. Like right now, the Celtics tonight, 95 shots. The Pelicans, 84 shots tonight. And the Celtics, while doing that, this is where the onslaught comes into play, right? So the Celtics took 11 more shots. Yet they also shot at a percentage 15 percentage points higher than the Pelicans. The Celtics shot 48.4% and the Pelicans shot 33.3. The Celtics shot 48.4% and the Pelicans shot 33.3. So right there, the Celtics are taking 11 more shots and they're hitting at a clip 15 percentage points higher than the Pelicans.
That's
I mean, that
incredible.
is
Yeah.
I mean that's right there, creating possessions for yourself and capitalizing off those possessions. The Celtics were on the other end of that the first 3 games, and that's why they're 0-3. And as simple as that. The Celtics were either, and some of the numbers don't really show what happened during a game, right? Because some of these games, the Celtics were out rebounded, right? They were outshot, and at the end, it's like, the Celtics, they're outshot by 4. Oh, they're out rebounded by, the rebounding numbers in the regular season have been atrocious, but in the preseason they were okay. But we still suspected, oh, this is not a great. We're watching it on court. We're watching the film on court. This doesn't look great, right? It just didn't. And the Celtics ultimately, the numbers in the first 3 games, especially the shot numbers, teams were taking more shots than the Celtics. There's just more opportunities. And that's what the Celtics did well tonight, is keeping those opportunities on their side. I mean, that is about as simple as that. And it goes into a lot of matchups too. Because if you look at the Pelicans are as incomplete as the Celtics, and they don't have an identity within their team structure at all. And tonight, too, let's mention this: no Zion Williamson. I mean, who would have thought, folks? The Celtics and Pelicans play in the 4th game of the season. I would have thought, oh, maybe we get a healthy Zion tonight, right? A healthy Zion on 4th game of the regular season. Surely we'll see Zion out in court. No, the Celtics don't see Zion, and when you're
Hold
missing your
my
best player,
beer.
and I want to say this about the Pelicans too. The Pelicans and Celtics might be on the same level with Zion in the lineup, right? With Zion in the lineup. I mean, taking Zion out of the Pelicans lineup is like taking their Jason Tatum out of their lineup. But where the Celtics, when Jason Tatum's taken out of the lineup, along with everybody else who exited the facilities this summer. But if you take Jason Tatum out of the Celtics lineup, I mean, the Celtics, or rather add him, the Celtics are going up a peg, right? The
Right.
Pelicans, if you add Zion, I mean, the Pelicans and Celtics might be on the same level, period, with Zion in the lineup. So when you take Zion out of their lineup, I mean, that's a huge deal for. I mean, any team losing their star, that's going to be a huge deal for them. But particularly a team that doesn't really own an identity whatsoever outside of Zion, and furthermore is already in that mid-tier teams, right? And I wouldn't even call the Pelicans in that mid-tier. Maybe that's generous from where they were to start last season relative to this season. This season, everybody, definitely hopping off the Pelicans train because of what happened last year. For the Pelicans, there's some quality on their roster that was out there at times, but without their star player, I mean, it's just not going to be, I don't want to say a fair fight, because we see star players miss all the time. You got to strategize for that. But the Pelicans did not have much of an identity to go to down the stretch, whereas the Celtics, it felt like the identity was maybe formed a little bit tonight, just a little bit, not a ton. I'm not sitting here going, wow, that's exactly what the Celtics need to do in order to win every single game. But we did see, okay, Pritchard and Simons, they got going down the stretch here. And can we just add that into what Jaylen Brown did yesterday with his efficiency? All of a sudden, the offense looks a lot better. And then defensively, that's always going to be a problem because of the matchups. But it's, again, about minimizing, especially on the boards, right? Minimizing the opportunities for other teams. If you're actually playing through a great defensive possession, I mean, that is the last step of a defensive possession. It's a defensive rebound, right? At the Celtics, that's kind of their first, everything else. They've been doing okay on defense, all right? The defense has not been great, but there have been moments where it's been okay, right? When they're forcing turnovers, right? They're forcing turnovers. Now, yesterday and even the day before, the Knicks, you could say The Celtics defense didn't look great, but there have been great moments, but they've all been overshadowed by the fact defensive rebounding has been a huge problem to this team, to the point where if you're doing anything well on defense, if you're not rebounding, well, all of those good things don't really matter whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah, and I have to say, one thing that impressed me, and you guys already talked about it, so I don't want to harp on it too much, is how incredible we played down the stretch. And it was just incredible because any team, you want to see it rise like that. And if you're playing that aggressive in the fourth quarter, you're going to beat 9 out of 10 of the teams you face, unless you're down by 50 or something like that, because the Boston Celtics played incredible. That's the best fourth quarter I think I've seen in a long time. And I want to mention this too. I've harped on it a lot last season about the Boston Celtics taking their foot off the gas pedal. And this is a thing where they slammed down on it in the fourth quarter. They were like, we're not taking it off. We're going full speed and we're going right. And we're taking this win. And I think ultimately the Boston Celtics, they're tired of losing. You know, Jaylen Brown, he was tired of it. You look at the Boston Celtics and they are a competitive team. And at points in this game, it looked rocky. And I want to know what the conversations were at halftime, because you look at halftime, they went out there and got destroyed by DeAndre Jordan. And we already talked about that. But you look at the end of the game, it's like, what was said there? Why? How did they just keep it going? They went all out, and it just impressed me. And you always want to see that. And I'm not saying the Boston Celtics are going to do this on a night-to-night basis, because they won't. It's just realistic. They're not going to have fourth quarters where they're up by 32 at the end of the game and had all their intensity in the fourth quarter, because the Boston Celtics have been struggling in the fourth quarter the past 3 games. However, what an incredible fourth quarter. And yeah,
I don't think the Celtics have been struggling as much as we think they are. I think I really genuinely think that.
Whoa.
No,
yes, they have.
Let me finish.
Oh yeah. Well, could win over the Pelicans. We haven't been struggling.
I never said we haven't been struggling. You didn't let me finish.
Yeah. Keep going.
The defensive rebounding has been
yeah, you did. Go ahead.
The defensive rebounding in the fourth quarter against the Detroit Pistons was so bad. I do solely believe the Celtics lost that game in the fourth quarter due to lack of defensive rebounding. The Celtics were doing a lot of good things in that Detroit game. You can't convince me otherwise. But the defensive rebounding is so piss poor that's going to cost you games. The New York game, Celtics played a really solid second half of basketball. They played a really good first quarter. What happened? 42-18 in the second quarter. Look at the New York or the Philly game, game 1. I'm not saying the Celtics aren't making mistakes and the Celtics are playing phenomenal basketball, but the Celtics have been able to put themselves in positions to win all 4 games this season. Totally. The Celtics have been there. It's not like the Celtics are getting thumped and waxed and ran off the floor.
They are considering that aspect though, right? Because if they're already dealing with thin margins and they're letting that rope go so far, in which obviously, I mean, that's the main conversation here, is their defensive rebounding has been horrible, not only through the first 3 games before tonight, but the preseason was not great either. I mean, if you're losing that category by such a wide margin, I mean, that's when the Celtics go from, oh yeah, they could be playing level in the East. Could they be a playoff team, a top 6 team, to you're not going to sniff that level, because that's what bad teams do. They let that rope go so far down. I mean, and it could be something else too. For other teams, it's not defensive rebounding. It could be offensive production. It could be simply, oh, we're not getting stops, period. We can't actually prevent anyone from driving past us on the perimeter. So, I mean, it's things like that just make a team bad, quite frankly, right? I mean, that's the building block in the wrong way, right? That's the negative building block. It's like that building block's put on, and it's like, oh, we don't want to reach that level.
I understand. And I'm not saying the Celtics aren't I'm not trying to make the Celtics sound better than they actually are. Like I if anybody's been real about this, it's been me. Like this is the reality of the Celtics, and this is where we are. And honestly, I said this to Rob earlier today. There's not 5 guys that you can throw on the court at the same time, and I'm telling you that okay, this is getting the job done on a night-to-night basis. There's just not. Like that's just the reality of it. But what I am saying is like, especially specifically in that Detroit game, the defensive rebounding has been so bad. It makes it feel like things are way worse. It makes everything feel like that it's so much worse than it could be or is. But yeah, I think, tonight it felt less like that because the Celtics were actually able to get rebounds.
My only disagreement within that, the only thing that is for me holding me back to being fully on board with that kind of idea is that I don't see a means to the end with the rebounding. I believe that
right, like
this
there's
problem
nothing that's going to solve it. Yeah,
right. It's like that's to me is why it's so concerning, and it is the Celtics are struggling because while in theory, yes, you're absolutely right. They have been positioned outside of really the New York game because it was for a brief stint that they had the grasp, and then they really let it go post first quarter.
Yep.
But like even still, no, you're right. They came out, they had a lead. They do the right things. They have been putting themselves in a position to win. But it's like you can't ignore, like Seamus said earlier in the show, like the last tool to a defensive possession is the rebounds, right? You don't get to go on offense, you get the rebound.
Yes.
So like you can't ignore that asset. I mean, I'm not saying you are, but like it's just like that is when you're struggling in that area, you still are struggling.
So
in my head.
No, you're right. But like also like that's also my big point too. It's like the Celtics don't have a great defensive team. That makes it so much more crucial to close out those defensive possessions when you can't get stops. You're relying on missed shots, and that's really tough to just solely rely on missed shots. You need to get stops throughout the course of a game. So when you're only kind of relying on those missed shots and you don't get the defensive rebound, that is a huge gut punch. That is an absolute huge gut punch. And specifically in that Detroit game last night, where I'm looking and Durant's looking like prime Shaq when the Celtics finally close out defensive possessions, and Durant gets a rebound, and all of a sudden Celtics can't rebound, Celtics can't get a stop. It's either a kick out 3, and Detroit's not a great shooting team, or it's Durant going back to the free throw line and feasting off of free throws. And that is a major problem. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that that's the only problem with the Celtics, but at the same time, that is the most consistent and most notable problem I'm seeing with the Boston Celtics right now is the defensive rebounding. And I don't think anybody on this panel can really argue with that.
No, not at all.
I just want to add on to that too. Like I'm not defending the Boston Celtics because you beat the Pelicans. The Pelicans aren't going to be a great team in the West. They're not going to be a great team. I think we could consider ourselves kind of a lower end team because, we played teams and we competed, but we played teams that are just simply going to be better than us at the end of the day. The Pistons are going to be better than us. The Knicks are going to be better than us. The 76ers are off to a 3-0 start on their season. They might even be better than us. So we just face teams that are just going to be better than us. And that's the hard truth because it sucks. And I'm watching it. These are teams that we played competitive against. And, in the years past, like last year, these are teams that we look on the schedule and we're like, all right, we're going to beat this team. Now it's like, let's have a competitive game. And I think we had a great game against Detroit. It sucks, but I feel like we're going to face Detroit later in the season and get them, because I consider us a team to be competitive against them. But simply the fact is we're just not going to be as good as those teams, and it hurts. And these are the games that we're going to have to get up for because we're on the lower end. We're not a 1, 2, 3 seed anymore.
Well, I definitely agree where you got to get up for these games, and you're probably right about Detroit in New York. Philly, it's too early to tell. I mean, Philly, shout out to you. I mean, the VJ Edgecombe and Maxey and Quentin. I mean, they got something brewing there in Philadelphia. I mean, really, they have been playing. They're off to a great start. It pains me to say that. But here's my thing with we're 4 games in now, right? Small sample size, but for me, with the Celtics and trying to gauge where they're going to be at this season, it's so difficult because I believe that they really, from the guard forward position, they have substance there, as Seamus would say. There is substance within the point guard, the shooting guard, the small forward, and then power forward. It gets iffy, but you could still make things work. That big man position truly is the worst core of any position there is in the league. The Celtics big men are really that bad. And for me, it's like when you have an entire room, that's like if you just have a team that has the worst
game today, by the way.
I know they did, and I'm not going to discredit that. But as today goes, like when you got the worst offensive line, because that's how I compare it, the offensive line in football to the big man core in basketball. You got the worst offensive line.
Made the same comparison last year.
It's you got the worst offensive line in football. Right. I mean, look at the Bengals. I mean, I could throw the Bengals out there. They got Burrow. They got Jamar. They got T. Higgins. They have this explosive offense. And it's like, yep, there's the offensive line. It's yep, the Myles Garrettson again for the fourth time today. That's what it feels like watching the Celtics, where it's like Simons and Pritchard and White and Brown and Minot. They're making plays. It looks good. Ugo's checking and he's getting stops on Cade. And yep, there's Jalen Duran again. Yep, there's another offensive rebound. Yep. And stuff like that at such an important position.
Yeah.
With that, really, your center is your anchor. It is the man that closes out the defensive possession. It is the man that can get the stop. It is so important. So I think that's why, and it's a shame you got to have these conversations on night where they played phenomenal, right? Garza 16, Keita 11 rebounds, 4 blocks. Like they came to play today, right? Yeah. And if they can continue to do this on a consistent basis, then I think that narrative can start to change. I just think, unfortunately, we've played 4 games. They've looked good in one of them. They looked pretty putrid in the other 3. The preseason was pretty much the same thing we've seen. So it's like, okay, we've seen 8 games now. Like 6 out of the 8 have been pretty poor. It's like, okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to keep going with this until, again, the season goes on and they start to show us more. But it's like, back to your point, Griffin, and even yours, Justin, it's like, right now with the Celtics, it really all depends on that big man core. It's like they really, in my head, they make or break whether this team's going to be, watching the ping pong balls bounce around or if they're going to be playing basketball in April.
What's tough about this big man core is it's actually a solid big man core if they weren't starting centers. Like these are really good backup centers, right? Like these are really good guys to, if
plug and play almost.
Right. Plug and play. Like,
right.
And Franco kind of mentioned it last night. Like, it's not really anything against Nemi personally, but like Nemi was playing fourth string quarterback last year. Like he was 4th string center last year. He was playing behind Kristaps and Luke and even Al when they go small ball with the 5 with him. Like now he's being thrusted in and expected to produce over 30 minutes a night at the highest level in the starting lineup against guys like, Embiid and Jokic and, prime DeAndre Jordan, apparently. So, that's just not something that I'm not saying Nemi's never going to be capable of that, but like right now, I just don't see that. And center is such an important position. It's my personal favorite position, and it's such an important position on the court in such a positionless game nowadays. And credit to the big guys tonight. Definitely their best game so far this season, but nothing's popping to me about these big guys. And I think that the reason is the reality of it is these guys aren't 20 to 30 minute per game night guys, in my opinion. Like and that's just the reality of it. And that's it could be an opinion, but I also think that's just a fact. Like I just don't, I hate to sound negative because I'm usually try to be the positive person here, but that's just kind of what it is right now. And you can get by the Pelicans, right? But like, they didn't have Zion, they didn't have Kevon Looney tonight. They're 2 best big guys. What about Wednesday night when it comes to Evan Mobley and Jared Allen against 2 guys who you're going to see in the Eastern Conference between 3 to 4 times in the regular season. And then who knows if we make it to the postseason, it's going to be likely the Cleveland Cavaliers in that first round. So, obviously that's getting way too ahead of myself, but obviously that is the reality of it. So I think Wednesday we're going to get a really good look at kind of, even though it's early in the season, at where we're at in the center position. And on the other side of things, I don't know if you're looking at a Luka Garza and maybe working him up for trade value, or Chris Boucher and working him up for trade value for the trade deadline, and trying to see if you can go out and acquire a guy like Nikola Vucevic. I don't know if the Celtics use that final roster spot and try to bring on a walk-on like James Wiseman, who just got bought out today by the Indiana Pacers. So there's definitely options out there for the Celtics to do. Are they going to explore that, or are they going to be a little bit more patient and kind of ride things out with the guys that they have right now?
I'll mention this with the big man core. If you think about the Celtics' top 3 big men last year, right? Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kornet. The Celtics really received nothing for all 3 of those players this summer.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
We traded them.
Porzingis turned into Niang, who turned into RJ Lewis, who turned into nobody. All right. RJ Lewis, it turned into literally just your wave. Goodbye. Kornet leaves in free agency. Al Horford leaves in free agency. The Celtics are left with absolutely nothing tangible to put out on court.
Not even a two-way
those
guy.
top 3 big men last year, who
Not
were
even a two-way.
Who were arguably, right? Luke Kornet would play at near all-star levels at times. I mean, the efficiency numbers from him this season have been, I mean, this is where the Celtics may have made a mistake. I mean, he might actually be in all-star conversations. I'm not kidding. Like, that is where his efficiency numbers are. I'm not saying he'll be there in February, but to start the season, right? The early season returns. And then you have Porzingis. Porzingis at his height is a top 3 NBA center at his height. Now, is he at his height all the time? Unfortunately not. But when he is, we know his ability. And the Celtics lost all of that for nothing, right? And now we're watching this big man core, and there are some returns for other sectors of the team, right? The wing position, the guard position, but the big man core, it is. I look at your statement, Justin, and I go, I 100% completely agree that it's just a fact. I don't think it's an opinion that, oh, these big guys, they can't really play 30 minutes a night. They're not starting level bigs. I think it's just a fact, right? I mean, these are all guys that are barely making teams on other rosters. I mean, they're all guys who have barely made teams, and Keita, I mean, look, the Kings didn't want, and I don't want to turn this into, oh, well, these guys are, other teams didn't want them, but that's the reality of the situation, right? I mean, other teams could have had these guys, in which the Celtics have in their lineup right now, and other teams weren't exactly throwing out a bunch of cash to go get Xavier Tillman in free agency, Luka Garza in free agency, right? They weren't like, oh, Keita, he was waived by the Kings, let's go pick him up. Now, these were all great moves by the Celtics, but at the same time, they're exactly what you said, Justin. I mean, these are bigs you want slotted in behind guys like Porzingis and Horford and Kornet, and maybe even one of them, right? If we had one of those guys right now, one of them, just please, one, it would be better than what we see out on court. I do want to mention, though, some numbers here tonight, not to go too far away from the big man conversation, but the fourth quarter, because the NBA finally released this data. For some reason at the beginning of the postgame, the data was not out there. However, the fourth quarter, the Celtics shot 14 of 21 in the fourth. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Pelicans shot 3 of 19 from the field, and the Pelicans shot 1 of 11 from 3. Meanwhile, the Celtics shot 6 of 12 from 3. The Celtics out-rebounded the Pelicans in that fourth quarter and passed to 8 assists. Meanwhile, the Pelicans 0 assists in that fourth quarter. So the Celtics all-around domination in that fourth quarter. Just wanted to bring up some of those numbers from earlier because we had the fourth quarter conversation, but the data was not out quite. I mean, it was probably out there. You could do the math, right? But, NBA.com, they released that data, but that data is out there now and really exemplifies the massive fourth quarter the Celtics had tonight, along with the big man core, in which I would say, I want to add this actually to the big man core. The Pelicans big man core tonight: Missy, Queen, DeAndre Jordan. Just saying, the big men, the reason they performed tonight might be because they faced a team in which owns a slightly worse big man core. It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say. It's going like, would you rather have Missy?
I was so underwhelmed with Patrick Queen. I don't want to get too into it, but like so underwhelmed. He looked
Derek
bad.
Queen.
Derek Queen. Sorry, Derek Queen.
Patrick Queen. He's fine. Ravens
Well,
linebacker.
one thing is whether we like it or not, right now we have to deal with the court. And I think, it sucks, but they're getting experience. They're getting experience out there on the court. They're getting a lot of minutes. And like even a guy like Luka Garza tonight, who played phenomenally, I feel in the clutch, at late times in the game. But there's guys out there, that you have to face an Embiid. Kata's going to have to face Jokic.
We already faced Embiid.
Well, that ain't a threat.
1 of 9, 4 points.
You got to
took care of him. He shouldn't even be in the conversation of, wow, these good bigs. It's like we took care of him. I mean, Kata, he had.
But this is the thing. This is how
Randy might have been on to something last year. I don't know.
Look at Wendell Carter Jr.
This is how they're going to get better. If you keep throwing Kata out against guys who are his caliber of player, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of, his game could develop a little more. But if you're throwing him out against Evan Mobley, he's going to be beat up and he's going to constantly compete. He's
going to cry and quit.
I feel like this take should be saved till Wednesday, right? You're saying he's just going to go out there and get whooped on Wednesday?
I'm just saying, if he's going to want to go out there, like, I remember when my freshman
you have no faith in this guy, Griffin.
That's what I'm saying.
What you're saying.
I have
you're trying
to compete to the level. No, this is what I'm saying.
You're trying to make the case that this is good for him, yet you're basically essentially saying like, oh, it's good that he's getting his ass kicked against these guys.
And ultimately, I think as a player, he's gonna grow from it. Facing off against these better guys, you're gonna grow from it. If you keep facing,
it's like when you get your lunch money taken and you come up and beat up the black eye.
Yeah,
you know what? It's going to turn you into a man. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
And even if you get your butt kicked, now you're gonna. It's better.
Get back up and fight again.
Griffin's son is gonna get shoved into a locker, and the kid's gonna come home and tell Griffin, and Griffin's gonna walk away from the situation going, that was good for him. That was really good for him.
Good.
He needed to go through that.
But like. I just see this like, and you have to be. I feel like this is what the Celtics front office wanted, though. This is how you build players. You get them experience. You throw them out there, and even if Kata, say next year we still have Kata on the roster, don't even know what next year's gonna look like, though. He's gonna be a great backup to come in off the bench because he had so much experience starting from this year. I think that's ultimately what you could take away from it. I'm not saying who knows? Mid-season, he could be a completely different player. We don't know.
That is
good
a
turnaround.
Good turnaround. That is a very fair assumption with the team. That's where a lot of these guys are at. Because that's kind of what the direction Brad went. He went to a bunch of freshmen that looked like they could get beat up in their lunch money took, and that's what's going to be happening. But
it's gonna happen. But that's how you grow.
No, in all serious, right? No, you are correct though. And all jokes aside,
which is kind of what we talked about earlier, Rob, you and I, when we talked about like Minot and Ugo, where it's like I'm almost using this year as almost like a tryout. In the sense, in terms of like, okay,
last night, throw them in, let them just
throw these guys in. Who works? Who's the most consistent? And I think the most thing with Josh Minot is obviously he's a freak athlete, but like, what's been the like we see a player, and his main thing is consistency. Like from game 1 of the preseason to tonight, he's been consistent. He's been having these types of games, maybe not putting up as many points, as many rebounds because his minutes and stuff. But like in terms of like his hustle, his grit and his determination, it's all been there since preseason game 1. And same thing with Ugo, who got a nasty DMP tonight for whatever reason. We don't have to talk about that. But I think that's just what this season is. And, you kind of try to see what guys fit and what guys are going to be able to fit into the system and what guys fit next to Brown and White and could potentially Tatum later in the season. So, that all is important.
Well, you bring up Minot, and, that's a good segue to talk about Minot because there is a conversation to be had about it because he is now 22 years old. And this offseason, what do we talk about, guys? Time and time again, we said these are a bunch of guys that Brad is taking a shot in the dark and hoping to find a diamond in the rough. And maybe, just maybe, Boston has found that with this kid, because you are absolutely right, Justin. This is an athletic 22-year-old who is just going out there and being consistent. Guys, we've mentioned time and time again now here on this program, not just tonight and other games prior in the preseason, the first 3 games, and now here tonight, about the struggling that Boston has had with the rebounding, with closing out defensive possessions, with having that depth in athleticism at that position. Minot now being slotted in as a 4 tonight in the starting lineup. 15 points and 9 rebounds, and just making play after play after play on both ends of the floor. When you look at this kid, 22 years old, out of Minnesota, coming over here to Boston in the offseason, I want to harp on him, but I also want to harp on the starting lineup. But first, do you guys, and this is like a 2-parter, does Minot belong in this starting core, or is this going to be a starting core that bounces around and changes for the foreseeable future? Or is it kind of look at Minot and be like, listen, this is kind of your guy now? Or maybe both could be true.
I think both could be true on that. But I think Minot has been your most consistent player off that bench, both offensively and defensively. Maybe you can argue Simons in terms of offensive talent, but the Celtics are, that 4 spot, that 4 or 5 spot is very tight, and you're trying to find guys to mesh. And again, I don't think there's any 5 guys you're going to put on the court and it's going to be like, okay, this is it. That's it. The Celtics are back. We're champions. That's just not the reality. But I think Josh Minot is a guy that I would slot in there almost every night if I could, depending on the matchup for sure. But even with the matchup, you can, if you want to play small, Josh Minot is a great guy to throw in at the 4. If you want to play big, Josh Minot still with his length is incredible. Now, I hate to bring this up, but there is less than a 1-year difference between Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot. Josh Minot, in a short, small sample size, has, I believe, in my opinion, been exactly what I had hoped Jordan Walsh would turn into. And that's on both ends of the floor. And Jordan Walsh has the length. He has that defensive capability. He hustles his ass off. His offense is very streaky. His shot really hasn't improved too particularly well. His form has improved, but his actual shot and his percentages really have not, at least not in a significant manner. But Josh Minot fits this team so perfectly well. And I do believe that he fits the play style that the Celtics not only are playing with right now, but I think that could go well when Jason Tatum returns. Because as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, like, I am looking at players who would fit alongside a team centered around Jason Tatum, whether that's later this season or early next season. I want Josh Minot a part of that team, whether that's, this year, next year, and moving forward.
Yeah, the starters, I'm a little confused on what is going to happen the rest of the season with the starters, because on one hand, we looked at the starters coming into the season going, could this be a night-to-night circumstantial basis type of thing, right? Where Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff looks at the matchup on the other end of the floor and knows we don't really have our 5 best guys, right? We don't have our we'd had this conversation on postgame last year. Was it the Hampton 5? I don't even remember. Don't even listen to me. We had this. We could go back. There's a January postgame where we tried to.
January was a brutal month we tried to forget about, by the way. That was 500 ball. We don't remember
that
January.
That might
was
look
a
like
rough
Christmas
stretch, but at the same time, it's like you look back and we're like, our rough stretch of basketball was
our best.
It was 500, but it's like this would be like that. That stretch, it's like we're 1-3 now. We're technically playing less than 500 basketball now. But regardless, right? The championship starting 5 2 years ago, right? Or even the starting 5 last year, those teams, who your 5 best players are if you're Joe Mazzulla. He's always known who his 5 best players are on a floor. Well, this team, the 5 best players are not really given. And that makes me think, well, every single night when a team actually comes through Boston or Boston travels, the Celtics travel down to, say, New Orleans, they're looking at the opponent on the other side of the court, on the other side of the scores table, and they're game planning, okay, who fits the mold of who should start against this particular matchup, right? That, to me, is potentially how the Celtics are running things right now. But on the other end, you look at it and go, well, maybe Joe Mazzulla is experimenting a little bit to actually find what the identity of this team is. Is it going to be Minot in the starting lineup? Can Gonzalez take over that role as a 19-year-old? We saw that the other day. It's very unclear what's going to happen when it comes to who is going to actually ironclad and stamp their mark on that starting spot. But that leads me to believe that maybe nobody stamps their mark on that starting spot over the course of the season, which then takes it to the conversation which we had the other day on post game about how that could lead to a lot of inconsistencies, right? If you're swapping or out Minot, Gonzalez, whoever from the starting lineup, Sam Hauser, every other game, that could cause
Sam Hauser should be
inconsistencies
starting.
within the identity of the team. Definitely. I mean, like the identity of the team is, do we really know how this Celtics team wants to play? Do we know exactly who should be out on the floor all the time? Not really ever. I mean, I don't
Right.
really feel as if I'm like, especially, and it's exemplified by Joe Mazzulla taking the 5 starters out the other day and just swapping them all out for 5 different players. I mean, you don't see that from a team, say, again, I hate to keep comparing this team to the championship team, but again, that's the standard. That's the place the Celtics, that is the gold standard of where the Celtics want to go. But that team, you're not swapping out Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White, and Porzingis for 5 guys off the bench, right? You're just not doing that. Oh, get in Cornette, Hauser, Horford, and Pritchard, right? I mean, that's not exactly happening. I mean, you're keeping Tatum out there, you're keeping Brown out there. This team is completely different. It's like even Brown, you know who's going to be out there consistently. Brown, White. You have to keep Kate out there, I guess, consistently, right? The circumstantial bigs, right? The
That's your
circumstantial,
starting
like
center,
you
man.
have to put them into that category because you know somebody has to be out there, right? Somebody has to be out there. But everybody else, I mean, it's not even clear. At times we've had the conversation. I mean, I know Pritchard and Simons, they played well off each other tonight, and particularly had 2 big nights themselves. But even those guys, it feels like at times, should Pritchard be out here with Simons? Should Simons actually be out here with Pritchard? And it's a versatility issue with this team at the end of the day. It's how do you actually put together the puzzle to actually get the result you want? Because beforehand, it was easy. You could put together the same puzzle every single time and it would just solve every single equation. Now, to solve the equation, you have to actually, if you're Joe Mazzulla, put together a puzzle that makes sense to actually go out and solve it because that versatility and maneuverability is gone within the lineup.
Justin, you go first.
Thank you. Were you were you referring to the Ben Simmons, the Anthony Simons and the Peyton Pritchard situation, Seamus, earlier today? Were you in that fourth quarter? Were you referring that specifically to this fourth quarter or moving forward as well? When choosing between those two late in the game.
Well, I gotta say, okay, I personally over the summer and even before the summer, look, Pritchard, we've seen Pritchard put up 20-point games. We've seen him score and win Sixth Man of the Year. We've covered him on here many times. Simons, we have not, right? This is our really what, 7th? I mean, not even the 7th game covering Simons because he didn't even play the first game. So Simons, to me though, out west on the West Coast in Portland, I see a world where Simons might be a more efficient player than Pritchard on both ends of the floor, but Pritchard simply receives the nod over Simons because he's tenured. He has that reputation within Boston. He deserves the spot because he's been working for it for years, and he was on the championship team, and he owns an identity from that standpoint within the Celtics organization. And I see a world where just over the summer, Pritchard was anointed as the guy to be in the starting lineup and to hold that torch down the stretch. Yet I was always questioning over the summer, why couldn't that be Simons? I mean, Simons is a 26-year-old guard who's already been in the league for 7 years. He's a 40% three-point shooter. I mean, it's a bigger sample size than Pritchard. I mean, it's not like Pritchard's sample size is small with what he's been doing, but it is smaller than Simons. It is smaller than Simons up to this point. And I do believe Simons is a little bit more of a moldable player, especially from a defensive perspective, right? And so, as Griffin, there you go. Okay. Simons, I basically the whole point here is Simons could just from a substance perspective, right? Of who is playing better, who actually is the better fit on court for XYZ lineups, and who are we actually going to include within our rotation? If you were to pick between two of the same player, right? Simons might be slightly more efficient. He might be slightly better than Pritchard, slightly more moldable, yet we're just going to give the spot to Pritchard because of his tenure. That's where I kind of just disagree on the anointment of Pritchard. I think really it's close. It's not as if I can say definitively, oh yeah, Simon should be in over Pritchard.
Right.
But there is this, oh, well, we have to give Pritchard his opportunity when I'm not sure in time, right? I mean, Pritchard is $20 million less expensive than Simons. So, I mean, that's the deal breaker right there. Simons could be out the door by the trade deadline. Let's just face it. Could be stocking his value to that point. But I do look at the two players. I go, why couldn't Simons do what Pritchard does? Right? We're anointing Pritchard into the position, but why couldn't Simons be that guy? I mean, he is that guy, but it's all about the opportunity and also the fit on court, unfortunately.
So I got two. This is like a two-part take. The first part, which is moving Simons to the bench and elevating Pritchard to the starting role, is actually the harder transition, right? Because Simons was a starter, Pritchard was a bench player. You could have really just put them right into where they have been playing their entire career, and they would have been much more comfortable at the start. So I think with this role, if you're going to keep it, it will get better over time, because each player is now trying to mold themselves into a new player. One's a six-man now, one's a starter. It's vice versa. But I agree with you, because you look at a player like Anthony Simons, and it felt like all that was missing in his career to take that step was an organization like Boston. A lot of the time with these guys, Portland, Oregon, phenomenal, beautiful city, right? Nothing against the city of Portland, but let's just face it. From an organizational standpoint, Boston is much more serious than the Portland Trailblazers. They always have been, and they probably always will be, right? And I do believe there is like a sense of when you're a new player, a young new player, and you come into this organization like the Celtics, the standard rises, the expectation rises, and your play rises. I look at Simons as a player that really has untapped potential. I don't believe you have seen the best version of what Anthony Simons can do. Seamus, you said it to open up the show. This is a player that is 7 years running, shooting 40% from downtown. He is one of the most electric, jaw-dropping scoring guards this league really has. I mean, he, in my eyes, can be to a level in which you see a Tyrese Maxey perform at. I mean, I'm not saying to that degree, but
they're actually really close. I would take Maxey a little bit over Simons, but I think it's way closer than people actually realize. That was a specific comparison I did this summer. I was like, Maxey, Simons, who would you rather? Maxey just because of the age and he has a little bit of the numbers, but it's really close. It's really close.
It is. It's very close, and it feels like Boston is not holding it back, but almost like you kind of said, it's like Pritchard is the longer tenured. He won the ring, and it kind of felt right with moving Drew. You kind of had to start Pritchard, and it would have felt wrong to not to. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, hold on. Like, Simons is a guy in my head that could be giving you 25 to 28 nightly on really efficient three-point shooting. You talk about Missoula ball. This is textbook point guard Missoula ball. Anthony Simons is the golden child to Joe Missoula. Like, he should, and he did plug the most minutes tonight with 32. So there's that, right? I mean, let's talk about Red Auerbach, but throwback, it's not about who starts the game. It's about who finishes the game. Rest in peace to the legend, Red. But I mean, in a sense, it feels like, okay, Boston might have gotten this gem of a player in Simons for a dwindling Drew Holiday, and he's bringing him off the bench. And I would really like to see, I'd really like to see Simons elevate into that starting spot. Now, again, does that even mean anything if Simons is logging more minutes? Probably not. But I will say, Seamus, I'm so on board with you. This is a guy that is a flamethrower. I mean, he is so good. And it would feel wrong to not have Simon start, because I do believe from a talent pool, Simons is better than Pritchard, and it just felt like Pritchard was supposed to get the spot. Pritchard's played well. He's been contributing very highly, but I think Pritchard, just bring him off the bench. Bring Pritchard. Why change the role? He's a 6th man of the year. Players in this league have made careers. Jamal Crawford, Lou Will, 6 men, Manu Ginobili. If you're a 6 man and you're a good one, you make a long career out of that. It felt like it just was something that Boston thought needed to happen, so they made it happen, and it feels forced and unnatural, and it kind of feels like Simons just is the better player, and everyone kind of knows it. But it's okay, Pritchard, you're the senior, and Simons is the sophomore, but it's the senior gets the start. That's how it kind of feels.
That's my problem with this situation. It's we're going to look past objectivity just to put a label on something, right? It's okay, right. Well, Pritchard, he's been here, therefore he should have. To me, Simons is a better 3-level scorer. Pritchard is huge flaw last year, and even coming into this year, can you actually finish at the bucket? Can you get yourself to the free throw line? Well, Anthony Simons, if you go watch his film, there's no problem getting downhill, getting to the bucket, getting himself to the free throw line. We all know he has that shooting ability as well. He's a better 3-level scorer than Pritchard, just objectively. And the Celtics are just going to look past that. I understand some of the balance off the bench and starting lineup, but I at the end of the day, really, maybe all of this on-court conversation doesn't even matter when it comes to Simons and Pritchard, just simply because Simons is $20 million more expensive than Pritchard and is on the last year of his deal. And the Celtics, he might not be on the Celtics past February. Who knows? That is where we're at with Simons, because Simons could be valuable enough for another team with a surplus of big men, which aren't a ton of teams out there. Because they're a big man that, Freddie Simons could maybe snatch the Celtics, right? Well, and it could be it doesn't even matter if Simons is better than Pritchard. They're going to go with Pritchard just because of the price tag, and Simons will turn into a big man or a wing in time, which specifically, if you want a big man back if you're the Celtics right now, any other spot, the Celtics are doing well. The big man, yeah, we're going to need one.
Well, that's where I wonder, do you think he would be more valuable as a starter then? Do you think you could get more assets for him as a starter? Because I think that's where he's his best. I honestly, because if you're just building him up to trade him, I feel like play him where he's good at least, because trying him at a new position, that's just going to decrease his value if he can't get it down. So that's
Part of that is because, if they're the game plan is, if we're going to trade Simons, why would you integrate him into the starting lineup when you already know, Pritchard's going to be the starter in the long run when we eventually trade Simons? Now, is that definitive at this point? No, but the roadmap is there. He's making $27 million. The bad part about the $27 million is it's expiring. It's not like another team's going to look at that and go, well, here are all these first-round picks and here are all these players for this expiring $27 million deal. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to lure a championship contending team in with something, and them have to believe, we're going to re-sign Simons. Simons is just not a player who's going to demand a bunch of assets or money over the summer, really. And that's also brings another conversation upon this whole plane. Could Simons maybe play out the season with the Celtics and sign for a lesser deal in the summer with the C's? And maybe signs with a lesser deal because he's coming off the bench. Just saying, he's coming off the bench. But to me, what really the Celtics team and Simons, the Pritchard conversation exemplifies is the Celtics this summer. They made the best moves possible for what they wanted to do, which was shed salary and basically take a year off with Jason Tatum on the sidelines. The Celtics, this conversation between Pritchard and Simons, that is a product of the Celtics just making the right move, right? Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons, that's a no-brainer. Does it really make sense for your team? No. The Celtics are not in a spot of championship installation. They're in a spot of championship deterioration into further installation into the future. And amidst that deterioration, they picked up Simons, and now it's, Simons and Pritchard on court, when it really, in my mind, doesn't make sense. If you're making a championship team, Simons and Pritchard on court do not make sense together whatsoever. Two high volume scorers who are questionable defenders. And that's just the bottom line of those players.
Well, can I get back to my point about Josh Minot? Do you guys mind if I chime in on that really quick?
Well, I just want to say one more thing on Simons
Yeah.
before we pivot. Because I do believe, Griffin, you pose an amazing question. And I really believe that, Simons in my head is because I'll be on record with this. I would take Anthony Simons 8 times out of 10 over Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah.
But Seamus, you make another great point. Simons is about almost nearly I believe actually $20 million more expensive a year. So it's like for me, when I look at Simons and I look at, okay, what's the direction that Boston's going to go with Simons? It's a little frustrating because I do believe this is a piece that could contribute not just this season, but I think this is such a complimentary piece next to Jason Tatum. He's just so uber talented. You watch him, tonight in that fourth quarter, you just watch him and you're like, we got this guy. He is that talented with the ball in his hands. But it's like, okay, is this going to make sense? And it's like, okay, when you look at the Celtics roadmap too, right? It's like, okay, there is just this gaping hole at the big man position. Is there a potential contract extension off-season trade coming? Is there a potential, dump at the deadline? Like, what's it going to look like with Simons and the Celtics? And is this player a roadmap to bring something back of substance? Because I also do believe you pair Simons in Sam Hauser, guys, that's $36 million on the books that you can move and bring back. And you got a trade exception on top of that. Like you could stack $40 million real quick to make a move and bring some players back in green and again fill in that hole at big man. So I do believe it's like right player, wrong time type of thing with Anthony Simons because I do believe that you're losing value by bringing him off the bench, and I do believe if you want to trade him, you should be starting him. It's just a rough situation, and again, it's like when you kind of have Peyton Pritchard in this lineup, it is really difficult. But we do have to pivot here because we have the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday, and that is a really a pretty big game, and we have to leave time to talk about that. So, guys, we got Cleveland coming up, and this is a game now where it's just it's actually ridiculous. So, just under a year ago, if you guys remember, it was game I believe 15 for the Boston Celtics. They were playing the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers at home in the in-season tournament. And they took them down, and now fast forward a year, and it is a completely different dynamic, guys. The Celtics versus Cavs. This is another matchup where the Celtics feel like they are not shorthanded, but they are the worser of the two teams. What are you guys looking for out of the Celtics in this matchup against Cleveland?
Well, according to Griffin, I don't want to see Luka Garza get killed out there by Evan Mobley. But it does go along with the theme of just the Celtics. They're going to be facing the best team they've faced thus far. Maybe the Knicks could be above the Cavaliers this season. Who knows? But the Cavaliers with their personnel, we all know the big man core there of Mobley and Allen. They're going to be a lot for the Celtics to deal with. But I agree with you, Griffin. This is going to be a great game for the big man core to grow a little bit, right? They're actually seeing some real competition. Earlier I mentioned the big man core. The reason we handed out some flowers tonight to the big man core was simply the competition. The bigs on the other side of the ball were not exactly the best. If you're talking about some of the worst big man cores in the league, the Pelicans and the Celtics, they're at the top, right? Or rather at the bottom, however you want to rank however you want to sort the list, right? The Celtics on Wednesday, they're going to be facing a team with one of the best, right? So that's going to be the rebounding, right? We talked about it the last 2 games specifically, and even Friday. The rebounding is going to be big for the Celtics. And not only that, it's going to be the matching of offensive production, right? We know the Cavaliers, aside from what they can do defensively and with their bigs, offensively, there are a lot of shooters. There are a lot of guys who can fill it up. Now, Garland, still out of the lineup for the Cavaliers, but Lonzo Ball's in there. His playmaking has been certainly something to watch with the Cavaliers. It feels like it brings to a new level to their team, especially in transition. That'll be something to watch on Wednesday, along with just our first glimpse of Donovan Mitchell against the Celtics, or rather this iteration of the Celtics defense. That's something that we did not see in the preseason, despite the two teams facing each other. Right? The Celtics technically do have a win over the Cavs this year. Just saying. But the preseason, we didn't see any of the Cavs starters, right? That was the conversation. We didn't see any starters. But Donovan Mitchell, he's always been a player the Celtics have struggled defending in the past. And considering the Celtics defense is a lot worse now than it's been in the past, that's certainly going to be somebody. I mean, this is probably the first. Let's see. I would say this is. Is it really the first? I mean, is this the best player the Celtics have faced in Donovan Mitchell so far this season? You could say Towns, Brunson. You could say.
Mm,
You
I
could
mean, we're
say
talking regular season
Cunningham.
Donovan Mitchell at home.
But this is also another thing. Donovan Mitchell, like what I'm thinking in my head right now, Donovan Mitchell, the type of player he is, that type of player destroyed the Celtics last Wednesday. Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. I mean, VJ Edgecombe, he's built a little bit like Donovan Mitchell, right? His game's a little bit like Donovan Mitchell. Those players destroyed the Celtics last Wednesday. And the Celtics defense, part of what makes the Celtics defense so lackluster is their ability to actually defend angles. I mean, it's amazing how many times a player can actually gain an angle on a Celtics defender. And it's just its ability, its experience, IQ, all of that. We've seen the last couple of seasons that unfortunately we all know is lacking from this team. But defensively, the Celtics, I think they're gonna have some trouble defending quicker guards this season, especially quicker guards who like to go downhill, attack the rim, collapse the defense. Donovan Mitchell is one of those quicker guards going downhill. You know, Cade Cunningham, a little more methodical, Jalen Brunson, a little more methodical, but the quick first step guards like VJ Edgecombe, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, the Celtics might own a little bit of trouble defending those type of guards this season, and that may or may not be something
They
the
did
Celtics
last
deal with on
season.
Wednesday.
They did last season too, if you remember. There was that stint.
And that's with one of the now last season, Holiday and White were not the best defensive backcourt in NBA history. The season before, maybe, but still, when you own those two players and when you own those abilities as those two players within the starting lineup and within the rotation in general, and now I mean White's still around, but Holiday's defense is gone. Like who we're even thinking about the Celtics in their offensive approach, right? We're talking about Pritchard, he sees the best defender. Brown's seeing the best defender now. They're seeing the two best defenders instead of before. They're seeing the third, fourth, fifth best defender out there. The Celtics, their best defenders from last season are gone, right? Holiday, Tatum. I mean, you could even say Al Horford, all gone, all gone. And it's not only the Celtics are facing other teams' best defenders. Celtics can't even really throw their best defenders at guys anymore, if you want to even say that with Jason Tatum on the bench. And I understand Holiday and all those other guys are gone now, but ultimately, I mean, that's the part of the conversation of discrepancy the Celtics face right now. But on Wednesday, we're either going to see the Celtics put themselves closer to the middle of the rankings. So I think this week the Celtics clearly fell to they came into the season around 15, 16, probably sitting there around 17, 18 right now, 19 within the market rankings. The Celtics beat the Cavs on Wednesday. I mean, all of a sudden they're going to be shot up probably past 16 and from what I can see. So big game coming up for the C's, and it's going to be another data point for us to analyze here on post game afterwards to see whether or not this team is actually maybe the 7th seed or the 13th seed. Who knows?
Well, one thing I have to say is I'm just excited to see how the Celtics respond after this big win in New Orleans. I'm excited. You know, obviously this wasn't a win where you're like, all right, we have momentum, but we have a little momentum. I mean, we're coming off of our first win of the season, and I think we're going to be hungry. So I'm just excited to see how we respond. I'm not sure if the game's going to be close. I'm not sure. Who knows? We could come away with a win, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they respond with it because, you know, the Celtics were a little defeated after the 3 first losses of the season. And I think they went in here and they gave that fourth quarter everything they had. And I'm excited to see what they can do against the Cavs. And that's all I'm going to say because I'm ready for it. And I'm excited to see how we're going to respond after a win. You know, a loss could have been the same thing. Maybe we were mad and angry and we go in there and have an upset against Cleveland, but I'm excited to see what we do after a win. And, we have the momentum, all players, and it was a great team win. I'm excited to see how we're going while we're clicking right now, because the Boston Celtics are clicking after this game, in the fourth quarter at least.
I'm interested to see what the rotation looks like. Joe's been going deep. He's been going 10, 11 deep, which again, for a team, the prior 2 years, we're really only running 8 deep. I mean, sometimes 9. I'll be interested to see if he's going to start tightening up the rotation as the season progresses, or if this is just a year in which, it's with Celtics are a team that kind of has to roll 10, 11 deep to see if they have something when a lot of the nights they don't. I'm also interested to see what the starting lineup looks like. Did Minot impress enough to get that nod again? I think Minot could be a great matchup to have in there for Mobley. We talked about that big man discrepancy, guys, Mobley and Allen. Minot has done a phenomenal job helping out on the defensive glass. I think that could be an awesome start there. And then I'm also excited. I mean, I don't know if excited is the right word, but I'm interested to see how Boston stacks up against a quick front court. Obviously, I believe Garland is still going to be out. But again, Donovan Mitchell, he is a Celtic killer. We're going to be at the TD Garden. I mean, if there is one man in the league that loves playing in front of the Boston Celtics fans, it is Donovan Mitchell. The guy is an absolute flamethrower against us. So, and again, back to Griffin's point, it's a great opportunity here. Now, you finally broke through. You got that win. It was a great win. I mean, the defense looked great in that fourth quarter. Offense finally found it together. Can you string together some wins now, right? Or are you going to be a team that, is streaky? These are the things that you got to figure out. And it's rough that, you pick up a win and you got to see Cleveland, the next game, but it's a great opportunity. You're at home. It'll be interesting to see how, they match up with each other. And I do believe this game will kind of be the first game where you can kind of start to point the needle in a direction. I know it's only 5 games in, but I mean, that Knicks game, it felt like it was a little early to see the New York Knicks, but it's like, okay, you got 2 more games in your belt. It's an extra week of basketball. It's 7 days of meshing. That's a road trip on the flight together. Like, these things add up as the season goes on. So going back home will be a good test to see whether or not the Celtics can match up. But guys, as for tonight, the Boston Celtics, well, they picked up their first win of the 2025-2026 season on the road at the Smoothie King Arena. 122-90 was your final score. But guys, just wait a second, guys. I want to say something before we close the show. If you are not subscribed to us on YouTube, do that right now. And while you're at it, turn on post notifications, guys, because we go live after every Celtics game and then some. So you will be notified exactly when we here at Celtics Talk Week, we go live. Guys, the Celtics are going to be back in action at the TD Garden this Wednesday, October 29th against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tip-off for that game will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Come right back here to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel, and we'll have you guys covered for a full Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Guys, I'm Robbie Haytayan. Next to me is my man, Seamus Zarlingo, and over there is my boy, Griffin Aldrich, guys. Until next time, you know the deal. Go Celtics.